I wanted to talk about threat assessment and like when to king, when not to king. So like I want to look at this a couple of different ways, like how you as a player can get better at threat assessment, and then also how you can help to sway the table when necessary that you're not the threat. So a good guy type stuff and also like a mastermind villain type stuff.
I know we're in sound check, Zach, but I like where we are. I'm just going. So one sec here.
My play group needs to threat assess better.
I think everyone's group can.
I threat assess well. Only best.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Into 99 Podcast, where we got 99 cards because Commander is number one. I am your necromancer with all the answers, Necrozach, joined by my two lovely hosts, Dan and Lotus. How are you guys doing today?
Doing very well, thank you. How are you two?
I'm doing pretty good. We also have a special guest today. John, feel free to introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm John Nosey from the Cryptic Commander podcast.
We had the other two members on the other day, and John couldn't make it, so we decided to finish it up. So, yeah, John, you can tell everyone a little bit where they can find your show. We'll get right into our topic after that. As everyone heard, I was doing sound check and then just liked where Zach was going with it. So that's our intro, and suck it. Go ahead, John.
Well, when I first started, because I started the podcast, and believe me, I met a lot of friends along the journey. This was about 2 years ago, and I created a mission statement. It's called Cryptic Commander. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. I worked real hard to get it out on Apple, Spotify, iTunes, basically anywhere you get your podcasts, you know. And the mission statement is Magic the Gathering is best with a communal experience. That's when it's stemmed from knowledge. Getting assistance where needed makes it far more enjoyable. And we try to produce content and YouTube content pretty much to help people, you know, starters, people that are just getting back into the game, and, you know, pretty much just help, you know.
I like that. That's a very good approach for it. We never did a mission statement. We just sit and rant. That's pretty much it.
That's how it goes.
It suits you better, Dan.
Yeah, me and planning? Woo, not for me. All right, Zach, back to everyone, by the way, go check John and the rest of the guys out over there. They're all very, very nice people. Great show. So check it out. They do also like a quick part of the finance aspect of it as well. They do monthly like moves and shakers and stuff like that. Very, very interesting show. Definitely do it. There was a really cool episode where they had a cool guest on. It was me. So check that one out. And yeah, anyways, back to our topic. Zach, you've wanted to get into this one for a while. So threat assessment. Bring us back into your intro here. Go ahead.
Okay, so I always look at threat assessment as like a double-edged sword, and it can be used to your advantage. It also can be used against you very easily. But I think a lot of us can agree that threat assessment is kind of lacking in our format because it is a casual format, but it's still a game where people are wanting to win, and sometimes you see someone and you know what they're building up, and if you're the person at the table that typically always wins, people are less likely to believe you when you say, hey, I know for a fact that food chain right there on the Corvold players board is going to be a problem. We probably should do something about that. Well, no, you've got 6 mana dorks out. I was like, that's not helpful.
Anyone who's played with me knows pretty quickly that like 600 tokens on board doesn't mean that I'm going off. I'm just trying to see how many tokens I can make. I dirtle too much, but yeah, like if you've never played a game with me and I'm like playing zeros and I have 600 snakes out, it's pretty easy to be like, oh, we should kill this guy and stop this immediately. What's he doing?
Why do you think I put Rakdos Charm in every deck I play?
Everyone should pack sideboard Rakdos Charm against me, and you can kill me in most games. But
see, that goes into threat assessment too. Like if you do have 600 snakes, you might very well be the threat at the table, but also someone who has a Teferi's puzzle box might be the bigger threat. It just really depends on what you're looking at.
Yeah, what's enabling me to get these snakes?
Yeah, so I had a couple points I kind of wanted to talk about, and hopefully we can kind of expand off of that, because I really wanted to talk about how to utilize threat assessment to know who the problem or what the problem is at the table, but also how to use that to your advantage. So maybe that you can, kind of sneak under the radar to set up whatever you're wanting to do, and kind of go from there. So like I said, you have your threat assessment as the good guy, and then the threat assessment as the mastermind evil genius. It's like a double-edged sword. So one of the first things that I kind of want to point to is knowing like basic combos, right? So in our format, we typically have a good job of saying like, hey, I'm playing with combos, or no, I'm not playing with combos. A lot of that kind of can be broken down into power levels, what have you. But ultimately, kind of just being familiar with the format. If I see someone playing an Abzan deck and I see Revelark, that makes me nervous, unless it's me who's playing it. Same thing, Protean Hawk. We kind of all know that Protean Hawk for the long time was the boogeyman of the format, and Thassa's Oracle, that kind of stuff. So just knowing basic combos can help to gather threat assessment. Is Rhystic Study really the problem, or is that person over there with a Laboratory Maniac the real problem?
I like that way of looking at it. The game knowledge is always good, right? And especially as you learn your own meta too, you understand like what people are going to fetch, what they're going to do. But when you're playing with a random pod, you are right. Like there are just some cards you have to threat assess a little different when it's a random group, because like you said, you only know who is around you, not what like Lotus is playing, right? So maybe Brian dirtles with Smothering Ties, right? But maybe Lotus doesn't. Maybe Smothering Ties has like a very deliberate point in her kind of deck, right? And that's a mass card accelerant for pretty much every deck that it's in. And if somebody is making like 100 like treasure tokens every go around, it is a big, like you said with the Teferi's Puzzle Box, it is a really like big deal to get rid of cards like that, even if you don't know what they're specifically for in that deck.
So a good example I have of that is, and we'll use Smothering Tithe, my Negan deck. Like, Smothering Tithe and Negan is vastly different than Smothering Tithe and most other decks that have white in it, because Negan wants treasure tokens at all points in time. Like, yes, always having the extra mana is nice, but ultimately that extra mana isn't just letting me extend my plays or extend my turns. It's typically being used to kill the table or loop something, not infinitely, but loop something so many times that the table is dead or a person is dead. So just... That's another thing I kind of wanted to segue into, is also with threat assessment, looking at the commander and then looking at the cards that a person's playing. A card that I really like in my Yannick, well, my Scavengers deck in general, is Together Forever. Wait, is it Together Forever?
Is that the Battle Bond one?
Yeah, with support.
Yeah.
It's a very innocuous card, right? Like, typically you wouldn't see that and think, oh, okay, like, why would I waste like a Crow's and Grip or something on that? But in that type of deck where the +1/+1 counters matter, and me being able to draw cards and gain life, a card like that might allow me to eke out so much advantage that I just bury you guys and being so far ahead. So, knowing when to pull the trigger on things and when not to is super important. That's just kind of like a basic thing, I guess, just learning your meta, like Dan said, and also just kind of being aware of what's going on.
Since we're on this subject, I don't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, since we're on this subject, I kind of want to let you guys know where I'm at on this subject at this point in time.
Yes, do it.
Okay, so when I started Magic, it was a group setting. It was every man for himself. That's the way I was taught. You can play this game, in 1993, you can play this game with as many people as you want. It was, like a dorm setting kind of a deal, and we would play all the time, and then later in life I would go to individual tournament settings where it was one-on-one tournament settings. Now recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing a lot of Commander and cube drafting and other formats, and really getting to know these formats and love these formats for what they are. Commander, when I started playing that 2 years ago, it really gives me the feeling of going back to 1993 in the beginning of time, where it was, multiplayer. Now, I have to still remember that the format multiplayer is definitely different than Commander, even though it's a multiplayer casual format. Right?
Right.
And threat assessment, to me, when I first started the game, it was multiplayer. There was no Commander, right? And it was basically, I was young and dumb. I'll go ahead and say it. I attacked whoever I felt like, I don't like this guy's haircut, whatever, I'm going to attack him. I mean, times sure have changed, right?
I still do that.
I look at threat assessment as, coming from a competitive side, guys, where we're at in this subject right now. I was used to one-on-one for so many years that when I went back to multiplayer and stuff, and I look at threat assessment, it really is me having an answer for things. Mm-hmm. And then somebody has what I call a +1. Now they're ahead. Now I'm ahead. Now they're ahead. Now I'm ahead. In Commander, things can go haywire, and I know this. I've experienced the turn 3, I kill everybody in the pod. Okay, I've experienced this. But I look at threat assessment as, okay, that guy's definitely the biggest threat. Okay, she's definitely the biggest threat. I look at it as who is the main threat, and I'm pretty sure in this topic we'll get to who and how we, come to this realization of who that is. But that's the way I look at threat assessment.
That's a really.
Oh, go ahead, Zach.
That's a really good point. That's kind of the big thing about threat assessment, I think, with Commander is that when you're in these competitive settings, typically it is a 1v1 type thing, right? Where you know who the opponent is. You know that they're the threat at all points in times. That means you're just only using your interaction with them. With Commander, I've seen a lot of control players fall in this issue, and I've helped a lot of friends building control decks where they're like, well, I have to have answers for literally everything at the table. No, you don't. That's part of the glory of Commander is that, we deal with things in turn order, like who has priority. So that's
right.
another really important thing about threat assessment and like the mastermind evil genius type stuff. I was really bad about this with my Tasker deck because it was a villains deck in my mind. So I would counter what I needed to, but if I played 2 counters the turn before, but still had a grip of counters, if something came to me, it's like, guys, I don't have this. Someone else needs to do it because you don't want to extend too far. It's more about getting better with threat assessment there because sometimes threat assessment is just stopping the person from winning, but also keeping the resources you need to be able to win.
What you just said is what I think the biggest problem with a lot of people's threat assessment style is, and that it's that they constantly try and answer other people's problems, not things that matter with you and stuff. So you'll see somebody get a Blightsteel Colossus out and I'll move to combat, and immediately it's Swords to Plowshare before it's even declared, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people, you don't need to save your friends in the game every time because you've probably just annoyed the player who wasn't going to attack you and now they're going to. A lot of people draw like individual players' ire by just doing something to someone who wasn't actually affecting them or their game plan. You're holding that Path to Exile, you're fine at any point to do it. Like, why aggravate the bear, That's
going back to what Zach said though for a second. When somebody ends their turn, I look at, do I want to do anything in response? And also the player to the right of me, because if it's a multiplayer setting, right? Mm-hmm. The player to the right of me, I'll wait till they say, okay, I'm done with my turn. And I'll be like, okay, cool. In response, I'm looking at the resources I have available. And I only want to do something in response if I have those resources available and I can still keep that tempo, i.e., when that person to the right of me goes, hey, man, I'm done. Go ahead. It's your turn. I want to take advantage of everything I can. Like if that person on his turn, he still has priority. He didn't pass it yet. He goes, I go to attack. I'll swing at Susie Sue over here. And I'm like, yeah, cool. In response, man, I'm going to tap my Timberwatch Elf and bump it up plus 26, So that way, you get what I'm saying? So I'm looking at what my resources are available at that point in time and who has priority. But when it comes to last case scenario, I'll have to do this, the benefit of what's the most benefit for me, right?
Yeah, well, you brought up a good point earlier, like the +1 to like everything you're doing. Like if you use you use some resource, like are you +1 or is that person +1? Are you both at asymmetry? Where that's the biggest thing with Commander. Typically, whoever has the most resources win, or who's been left alone the longest because they have generated enough resources win.
Right. I mean, I'd like to sit down and play with Dan one day. He said, 600 tokens or 200 tokens or something. Hey, I don't know.
That's a normal game.
Yeah,
I just don't know how that's cool. I mean, like if you're pumping them out that quick or whatever, and you got like, let's say 50 out there already, it's like, wow, dude, that was a good game, pretty good game. But I don't know how they're letting you get there,
I yesterday I was playing the Minsk deck, Minsk. So the whole point of it is to use Minsk's ability to like turn things into giants. And I was like, oh, like this is really fun. But my whole deck is like made of mana doublers, and basically, if we were in turn order, the person right before my turn was like, yeah, I'll play a Cursed Totem. And I was like, in response, I had Azor's Gateway flipped and Mana Reflection and Nyx Bloom. I was like, I'm going to make 500 Angels. Let's see where that one goes. Don't play Cursed Totem when I'm playing a commander with activated abilities.
I think Lotus can attest to this. He comes out of nowhere. That's the issue. Is like I think Lotus and I do, because we've played with Dan quite a bit. I think we both are pretty good at threat assessment. We know when to pull triggers on things. Dan just literally comes out of nowhere. We're always kind of like, when did this happen? How?
Yeah, the thing with Dan is the last game we played, I think I finally found how Dan plays. And I was playing Calamax, which the way I designed it was a spell-slinging Voltron deck.
Okay.
And Dan was spell after spell after spell to try and remove everything on my board, but I always had an answer. And I've worked out what Dan does. He builds up and builds up his resources to a critical mass and tells every other player on the table to deal with the threats.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's cool. That's fine.
I do point.
No,
so it was like, I have a
accept
Beast
that.
Within. I'm like, well, yeah, like, like Lotus has this Calamax, so she's been copying all these spells. I'm like, if we get rid of that Calamax, like we should be good. And
no, that should be normal. That should be normal. I mean, I like the sound of that actually, Dan. That's pretty good. I was just saying we have a female in our play group, Vicky, and she does the same thing, man. She'll build up her resources, and she'll be like, no, that's the biggest threat. And she's right though. At that time, in the middle of the game, that person's definitely the biggest threat, So you want to deal with that. You don't want to let them get out of control, If you can't attack the biggest threat, don't attack anybody. This is the way we play, And because you don't want to lose your stuff,
That's, I can relate to that. So
I agree with that, though. I know Zach, and then Dan, and what's the other co-host's name? I'm sorry.
Oh, you forgot me, Lotus.
Lotus. That should be the easiest to remember right there. Lotus. Lotus. That's
it. I'll resign.
In the UK.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was very astute of you to learn that. Right there. That's his play style. That's really cool to understand that. But I condone that. Over here we do the exact same stuff. So it's almost like a game of diplomacy when you're playing Magic the Gathering with Commander in a multiplayer setting.
Not with me. I play like an angry bull who you've thrown a rock at.
Whoever you're not attacking with the 600 tokens though. You just
until someone does something, then I'm like if someone's like, I'll play a Cursed Totem, and I was like, well, 500 angels are coming at you. What's up?
Literally, you do anything to progress your board state, or even threaten anything of Dan's, he'll go, I'll kill you.
Ooh, I did with the angels. I got like a really, really unique thing off. Somebody played an ensnaring bridge, so I couldn't do anything with the angels. Right. So I turned them all, like, they're like, I have one card in hand. I was like, awesome. I was like, I will turn them all into 1/1 giants.
I mean, you have to
I love
somebody
Minsk
with
so
mass
much.
removal on that priority. So like they got priority, they do something. You're like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and create 600 of these 4/4 flyers, and then somebody on their turn still has to have mass removal, right?
Mm-hmm. Me and my brothers play too aggressive to be removed. Like we play a very anti-removal meta because we don't really pack a ton of it. We just pack like kill you cards. So everyone else is like slowed down by like, I'm gonna board wipe. I'm like, I will Xeris once again, and then we will Winds of Change.
I've never experienced that in Commander yet. I want to experience that.
Play with Dan and his brother. I'm telling you. Like,
my brothers are built different the way they play.
Don't get me wrong. I love your brothers, but I have never been so annoyed in a game of Commander than playing with you and any of your brothers. Love them. They're absolutely great guys. I think their decks are cool. But if there's one thing I hate, Possibility Storm.
Oh, I've seen Possibility. Yeah, I was gonna say Possibility Time Sifter in every game for like the last month.
Thieves Auction.
Yeah, my whole play group is like into just these nonsense chaos cards right now. I did play very disrespectfully yesterday. We started playing with like a lot of like newer players, and it's like very fun to like cultivate like a new group, and we're really teaching them how to threat assess, and I'm teaching them horrible habits. So, like, I'm sorry for future Magic players who play against them, but like they're like, what should I beast within? I'm like, hit their command tower, then they don't have the colors to cast their commander. Do it. Like I'm teaching people just terrible ones. But
so if we're talking about threat assessment though, in your example right there, you're building up your resources. Nobody knows that you're doing anything, right? Everybody's like, you know what, pass him up. Don't even, maybe somebody might hit you here and there, but nobody's really going after you because you're not the main threat. And then out of nowhere, you're all of a sudden you're the main threat. Wouldn't you want to have to learn from that experience? Like, you've inspired me to try and learn how to deal with mass removal over and over and over and over and over again. That's what you just inspired me to do, because if we're talking about, you know, threat assessment, that to me right there is one of the ultimates, wouldn't you say?
we did a game. It was Connor and Andrew and Zach, right? With the Xeris deck. Mm-hmm. I think they board wiped me 6 turns in a row, and 6 turns in a row I was able to bring Xeris back and get like net positive 60 snakes.
So what kind of positive influence can we give our listeners right now to inspire them to try and build something that does work against that? I mean, that's a big threat in my book.
Rakdos Charm.
So the answer is just Rakdos Charm. There really is no other answer.
Well, no, there's more answers. Actually, like Crafty Cut Purse?
Yeah, getting all the tokens. Oh man, that's a good one. Yeah.
Dan is I haven't been playing a lot of blue lately because I'm an Abzan player typically, or black plus.
Yeah, Massacre Worm.
Yeah, Massacre Worm.
Massacre Girl.
Massacre. Literally anything with Massacre in the name probably is good against Dan.
Illness in the ranks. All tokens get -1/-1.
A lot of if you have people who like play like I generally, my love is really like landfall and like triggered abilities. Just name that I can't cast Panharmonica on you. You wreck like 40 of my decks. Like I love to do that kind of stuff. But like
Blood Moon stops you. Field of the Dead.
Yeah, Blood Moon is a real bad card. It doesn't feel great. No, the
best one to play against Dan, he loves it, is Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah,
Stan is a huge.
Like I said,
blue card in Magic Dan loves. It's Cyclonic Rift.
I'm like a bull with a rock. You throw that rock at me the one time, I'll attack you all night. If someone Cyc Rifts me, and again, maybe there's another part of threat assessment. It's grudge holding. Understand that your actions have consequences to a lot of players, and if you Cyclonic Rift me in games, I'm going to attack you for the rest of the night. I will bully you out of playing Cyclonic Rift. just with raw aggression of attacks. That's, I don't know, like I said, there are vindictive players like me who just really don't like certain things and will kill you if you play them. And you gotta, when you're doing your threat assessment, maybe understand that those come over to the next game too.
You guys are strictly a Commander podcast, right?
Yep. I only play Commander. I play like a little bit of Vintage, but no one ever plays Vintage. So
it's really cool to me, since I've only been playing the format for 2 years, is, you know, Commander is the other formats. When you jump, if you played all the other formats like Standard, Modern, you know, Vintage, you jump over to Commander, it's totally different. You know, you think ideas and strategies over in these other formats will come over here, but in the singleton format that Commander is, it's totally different. You know?
Yeah.
I fully understand, because I play Standard, I play Modern, I play Legacy, I play Pauper. I play pretty much everything that you can think of except Pioneer and Historic, because they're not real formats. Anyway, but it's definitely different threat assessment. It's different ways of strategically trying to build decks and attacking an opponent, because you're not just trying to go, right, that's a threat, but what could be happening after my turn that I have to worry about as well.
I'm not sure if you're going to edit this part out or not, but Historic, I'll agree with you, Lotus. Pioneer now, I don't really like the format Pioneer myself, but I do understand, and I actually support the idea of the format and the format its entirety, because of why it was developed. You know, there was no access to the other countries to these Magic cards. And then all of a sudden, with the gate crash, the Oathkeeper, whatever you call those guys, the Planeswalkers, you know, those guys, when they came out with that set, like, what was it, M10 or something like that, when they brought out the watch party with Jason, Chandra, and all them as a group, and access to other countries start getting cards they never had access to. They don't have access to anything before M10.
I guess that's a very good way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I support the idea and the format in its entirety. I'm not going to say that I go out of my way to play it. I don't. But, I mean, there's some people around me in my LGS that just go gung ho over Pioneer, man. And I'm like, that's cool, you know. I'm glad you're what's that black green creature everybody uses, man. Anyway, so I'm just saying, you know, there's a lot of decks that repeat themselves in that format. It just reminds me of another, extended or something. But
Right.
When you were
extended.
when you were talking earlier about like playing like just like basement magic and stuff, right? That's generally what I did for a long time with like my play group of friends. Is like when we were younger, like we'd all be at my parents' house and we'd have like these big like 10-man free-for-all games where like you just got like annihilated. Like we just played like the saltiest magic, like decks running like nonstop stasis. Like we just played like I was gonna say just like I didn't want to like be offensive to your playstyle, but like just like terrible person magic is like what we were playing. Yeah. Like it was all sneak attack titans kind of thing to annihilator people's field. And then like I went over into like I did play standard for a while, and it was just such a different thing because you're only interacting with one person in a one-on-one thing, right? So the way that you actually play just like became so wildly different. Like that's why I love playing like the CEDH kind of EDH. Like I like the more competitive, faster paced stuff. But the reason that competitive EDH like CEDH can never have like real tournaments or anything like that is it's so chaotic. You know what I mean? Like I could have like, just as like a bad example, I could have like a Comet Storm that was going to kill Lotus and just be in like a great winning board state, and she might not be able to stop me, but she can Psych Rift and reset the board, and I end up losing because of it. Or like exile like one of my cards that's letting me win on the way out of the game. It's such a chaotic format that you never know who's doing what and how it is, and like that's why the competitive part is fun. There's so much interaction, but it's just so chaotic because you can't build around 4 decks. You have to try and like stop other people from winning. You have to try win. It's just so chaotic. And the lower a power scale you go, the more chaos there is in it, because you have no idea what I'm playing when I sit down and put a Morphon thing. If you're like, what's that? I'm like, we'll see. Right? Like there's no way to know what it is. Like I could just be playing. What was your Morphon deck, Zach?
Oh, it's Devoid Eldrazi.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 things I want to say to that. One is it's supposed to be a casual format, you know. CEDH, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I like just EDH more than CEDH myself, but nonetheless, I digress. When you say real tournaments, you know, I was under the assumption that Commander is just a casual format that there's really no sanctioned events for it.
So the thing is, it's the most popular format right now, which means like Wizards obviously wants to monetize it in whatever way it can, and like that is like the circuit. A lot of people, if you look at like standard gameplay versus, or even like arena gameplay versus like Commander gameplay for like the bigger YouTube channels, Commander, it just outperforms it a lot. People love the format. They love getting together with their friends, like you said, probably because it is the more casual, relaxed kind of thing. But like you can't have like when I say real tournaments, I don't mean like we're gonna win like $50 or $100 or get some prize wall stuff. I mean like GP level prizes where we have like a pro tour of like Commander players. Like it'll never happen because in a 4-man pod, it's just such chaos. It's just such nonsensical chaos. Like my favorite thing is watching my little brother plays Norn the Wary, and I just enjoy watching his like chaos deck ruin people's like stacks decks, ruin people's like just like full like competitive decks, because like he just plays like confusion in the ranks and suddenly you don't have Urza. Like it's
competitive side of us. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
To that degree, remember we were playing with him and he was playing his Norn deck and I was playing Grevin, and I literally had lethal on board on turn 4. I was going to kill him because he was playing a chaos deck, and then you were playing Kenrith. I think you just ended my turn.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll just end the turn. Zach's Grevin is like a self-damage deck. And I was like, let's see where this goes. It was a bad idea. I should have let Zach smite him.
I had a very good hand, and that's the thing that just goes back to like what's fun about threat assessment, right? Like I didn't know that Grevin was going to do. I built Grevin to be a lack of a better term, like a kamikaze deck, because like I want to do as much damage to myself as possible. So grabbing big beefy, and threat assessment is good. That's where Dan saved the table, and then it was bad because we lost the game there.
A really good style of threat assessment too is something I do literally every game. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what they do. I just tell them it was a bad choice.
Oh god, that drives me insane.
Oh man, because it like you just nag it into people, and they're like, "Was it a bad choice, or is he just a jerk?"
So this is a thought that I had, just circling kind of back to what I said earlier, but it's a different view on it, I guess. We're competitive in nature. If all four of us were to sit down and play Super Mario Brothers, we'd see who can beat it. And if all of us can beat it, then who can beat it the quickest? Okay, we did that. Now can we beat it without getting any coins or killing anybody? There's a competitive side to us, right? Mm-hmm. And going back to 1993, yeah, Dan, I'm going to agree with you. We had a different mentality back then. It was salty, like you said. You wanted to come up with some jank, and you really wanted to beat people so bad that they really want to play you again, and they try and beat you. But that really wasn't how it worked out. It worked out to where I'm done with this game. I'm selling my deck.
A lot of people got salty. Yeah,
I saw it over and over and over. That's not what we wanted, but it's what we saw happening, and so we have to learn from our mistakes, right? And nowadays, when I go play Commander, again, it takes me back to 1993 when I really enjoyed the game. Sure, I was in a different mentality back then. I was really going for the throat, and now I'm more on the casual side of things. And when I look at EDH, I just look at it as, this is fun. Sure, we're going to be competitive. She's going to try and win. I'm going to try and win. He's going to try and win. But we're here to have fun with this, though.
I can relate to you on that regard, because in my local play group, I used to be that player. Like when I got back into Commander, because I took a break from Magic during the original Theros block, and I got back in around the Amonkhet block. So I started back in Commander, and at that time, like, and you guys have heard this kind of story from me before, but I didn't really have money when I was playing originally. But as I came back, like being an adult and having a more disposable income and all that, I was able to start getting, building decks and putting time and effort into them. And my play group was kind of still, they could play, but they were still learning how to build Commander decks. I had already built Commander decks before. I just got better at it. So that's how it was for me. I was like going for the throat, like people were getting frustrated and salty. And then as like I got further into it, and then I started working with the team here, like I kind of changed as a player. Now it's like, I just want to play. I just like building decks. I build either very thematically or very synergic, or with synergy in mind, whatever, however you want to say it. And now it's like, if I lose, I lose, but if my deck does the thing for even just a turn, I don't care. When I mean, Dan's been on the receiving end of a couple of my like pretty bad decks, and like I don't like.
You got some good triggers, yeah.
I feel bad because I'm always like, man, it's not what I wanted to. Like, I didn't want to make someone else feel like that. Like, I'm very bad at winning, as like awful as that is to sound, because I'm not that same person, right? Because I have came to that mindset that Commander is the way I like playing Commander is a more casual format. Granted, if I sit down a pod, they're saying we're playing 8s, and I play my 8 and I lose, I don't really care, because like if my deck does a thing, whatever. If you guys are having fun, I'm having fun just hanging out.
That is at the end of the day, like the best thing to remember is that we are all trying to win. But like you said, we're trying to get along, have fun. Like people, it's fun to see people's decks go off. It was very fun to see Lotus beat me with that Stegosaurus. Like it was undeniably a good time for everyone who has seen me just smash Lotus with like token armies to just like lose the total control battle there when it was a good game. It was a good game.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about. Oh, go ahead, Lotus. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I say is with threat assessment, I've noticed in the last, since we've gone back to LGSs and over lockdown, although threat assessment has changed, the lack of removal in decks to cause threat assessment has changed as well.
Yeah.
EDH decks have gone from, I'm going to build a battle cruiser deck and smack you in the face with these big creatures, to here's a few combo pieces and synergistic parts of my deck which will make me win. And I've gone back to my LGS and I built my own version of Wolfgar of Icewind Dale, which Dan built.
Ooh, it's fun.
And all you do is you play your commander, you play a creature, you attack the first person you see. There is that. And they can't deal with it because they're not. They don't build decks anymore to deal with creatures.
Well, yeah,
I'm glad she brought that up, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say like there's basically like two categories of people. There's people who like migrated into online play, and then there's people who just kind of paused their play styles, right? But the vast majority of people still played, still collected through the pandemic. They did whatever they could to get a game in whenever they safely could or play online. And like you said, Lotus, the deck building play style, it was so I'm going to spot remove this, I'm going to spot remove that. But when you're playing a bunch of, for lack of a better word, junk creatures, what are you going to remove? That's my deck I've been having just such a blast with right now is Linden, like just mono white 3. Because what are you going to you going to kill Linden? I'll just play her again. She's 3. Yeah. All she does is gain me life. I have 80 life already. I can be without life for a turn. I just love just the worst creatures. If you're just playing, for lack of a better word, not good creatures. Connor plays Angus Mackenzie right now. You guys haven't seen that one yet. It's just like a cleric fortress deck that he likes to play. And there's nothing worth killing. He's in green. He's going to cast Angus Mackenzie again. So like, what are you going to do? Get his Mother of Runes?
Well, Lotus, I want to say that I think you bring up a really good point. When you're building the 99, right? Because I don't know what anybody builds first, the commander first or the 99 first. When you're building the 99, I find myself victim to looking at the meta, even in my own head. I don't have to look at the internet for the answer, right? I look at the meta and I'm like, okay, I got to have an answer for this. I got to have an answer for that. I got to have an answer for this. So you have what, 1/3, if not 1/2 of your deck already just answers to the meta?
Mm-hmm.
I understand where you're coming from. It's almost coming to be a dilemma itself. And who is to fault for this though? Us as players being really, really competitive. You look at mystical dispute, right? And you're like, should I not throw this in my deck? Well, I probably should throw this in my deck. I mean, I don't know. Coming from different formats, it's a really good card in certain formats, So it's like, should I put this card in my deck? Should I not put this card in my deck? But it's really an answer to a lot of the problems in the meta. So I'm a victim of, now I feel like I have to put this card in my deck.
I'm notorious for running negate over counterspell.
Just love it.
And these guys give me so much crap for it because they're like, well, why wouldn't you just play counterspell? Like, I don't know. I like negate. I feel like most of the time I'm I'd rather die to someone playing creatures than someone comboing out, because typically you'll see combos be non-creature. I mean, obviously we know combos are creature centric, but typically what I've been seeing more is like combos being non-creature based.
When the game was created, we had, not to cut you off, man. When the game was created, we had a pool of cards, and then actually, I'm not sure if that patent has expired by now, but it's a game where we can have thousands and thousands and thousands of cards, and you make your deck out of it. So we're talking Commander here. You got 100 cards you can put in your deck out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. But where the disease is coming from, what I think Lotus is trying to bring up, is when you're building your deck, you're really subject to building half your deck for just answers. Mm-hmm. It's not what you want to put in your deck. Like, for example, I want to go wide. Okay, so I want to go wide like what Dan's doing, right? I'm just going to build a lot of tokens and spread, and these are my resources. There's no need for removal. There's no need for counter spells. I'm just going to do this, right? But now, in 2021, I've got to think of the meta over here, and it's like, well, wait, how's the meta going to react to my deck?
Answers require thinking, and my smooth brain is just all aggression. I'm like, I could pack this Doomblade, or I could remove a land and put an Avenger of Zendikar.
That also brings up, that kind of circles back to threat assessment and more in your like local meta, and that kind of also ends up leading to an arms race, which is also kind of a slippery slope, right? Like, as you start to threat assess better and realize, okay, Dan is always going to play these tokens, Lotus is trying to Voltron / Storm with Calamax, like, what do I do to stop that from happening so I can win a game? And it's a really weird slippery slope.
That's like that's a really interesting way of like knowing that you threat assess, because I don't threat assess that way at all in the slightest. Like I break every card played down into 3 categories. 1, I don't care about this. It doesn't affect me. It's not good enough. 2, it's like things that are a problem to the board, and like, can I maybe get someone's like favor by like, all right, Zach's like playing his commander, there's an oubliette on him. If I get rid of it, like what can Zach maybe do for me? Like, am I in a red deck that can get rid of like an artifact that's annoying him, but I can't deal with an enchantment later on? So I look at like what threat can I remove for people to possibly like gain some favor for an answer I don't have in my deck. And then I also look.
We're talking about it.
Yeah,
it's a good thing we're talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my final way of looking at it is like, has someone done something? I was gonna say that like affects me from winning, but that has just agitated me. Like it's basically like have they Cyclonic Rifted and do they play Cyclonic Rift? Because that is like when I make the joke all the time, like, haha, I do bully people out of playing Cyclonic Rift. If I know you play Cyclonic Rift, I just attack you regardless of if you've played it that game. I'm like, she's got blue, she plays Cyc Rift, I'm gonna kill her because I don't like being Cyc Rifted. So that's like my threat assessment is like, what is on board that is gonna stop me from winning, and like who has that potential and stuff. Like, am I playing against a stacks deck that I know is gonna make it so I have to, like Brian, for example. Brian's a great example of it. If you leave Brian alone in a game, at a certain point, Brian's going to have like a bunch of stupid stuff like Stony Silence. He's going to have like, like all of his copy enchantments on a Ghostly Prison, a Sphere of Safety. It's going to be 80 mana to attack him, right? And I'm playing tokens. What am I going to do? Pay 80 mana to swing with a Saproly? No, never. So I have to kill Brian first. It just is what it is. Like it's nothing against the guy. I love Brian, but sometimes you just have to smite Brian from the earth. Like it's
a lot of what I'm hearing, though, if I could just probably boil it down to one point, probably, is, and this is just what I'm hearing from this conversation, is we're all different, when it comes to our threat assessment, right? And that's cool that it makes us unique, but it also helps your listeners understand that they're doing threat assessment their way. There's other ways you can do it. Just know that there are other ways to do it, but make sure you make the smart plays, the right plays, and learn from your mistakes.
I do, before we even do move on, I'll let Zach go, but I want to know like how Lotus threat assesses, and then the same for you, John. But
so I'm a very last minute selfish threat assessor. Unless it's going to do some devastating effect to me, or there's a 2020 coming at me, I won't touch it. It's not bothering me. It doesn't affect my board state or what I want to do. If it's swinging at me, it dies. But I am literally, I will do it at the last possible moment I have to. Because someone goes, as you said earlier, I move to combat with my 2020. Guy across the table who's not even going to get attacked this turn goes, I kill it. I'm like, cool.
You're like, yeah, I didn't have to solve that problem anymore.
Yeah, so I will do everything at the very last moment.
Yeah, same way with me. You're asking about threat assessment for me?
Yeah, just how you guys what makes you choose it.
Well, it's the same way, except for I look at my life total as a resource also, right? And if I'm down to 1, that's what I look at. Like, you can hit me all you want, man. Hit me with a 5-5, hit me with a 10-10, hit me with a 20-20. I hope I'm at 21. But, if I'm down to 1 and I'm still alive, cool. Because I want to use all my resources at that last second to make sure that if I do stop that and they go, okay, counter spell, well, I'm going to try and counter your counter now too. So I'm like her, I want to wait till the last second, but I also look at my life points as if, sure, man, hit me with 17. I don't care. That's fine. I'm not dead. As long as you're not killing me, I'm not worried about it. And like what she said too, if my friend's going to take care of it first too, so be it, but then that goes back to like you, Dan, you're sitting there, you're like, no, I'm not a threat. She's a threat. And it's like my friend Vicky over here. She's like, well, I'm not a threat. And it's like, sometimes you got that distraction going on, but it's fun times. That's how I look at threat assessments.
I really think your threat assessment reminds me of a player that's more accustomed to a 1v1 format, because I think with commander player, like I'm the same way. I very much am like, life is a resource. I will always spend my life to do literally everything in the game. If a card says pay X life to do this, I'm probably going to play it because I love that kind of stuff anyways. I'm a black player at heart, so...
Yeah, I wasn't going to the black side where I'm going to use my life points. I'm looking at it as if you're going to hit me.
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Like, like you said, we start off with 40 life points. Why waste a kill spell on something that's going to take 5 from you? You still have 35 to go. You're not at 0, so you're not going to lose. What's it matter? You can eat those hits without expending your stuff that you can use later when it's more crucial.
You are correct. I'm used to 1v1, man. I went to 1v1 tournament style,
And I think that's really unique about just from this conversation we're having, because like Lotus plays a lot of 1v1 formats. I've been huge, like I started playing in 1v1 formats. I've been huge into modern lately, and I've been like transitioning modern decks into commander decks and trying to see how I can make that work.
Oh,
like,
it's fun, isn't it? Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
I just recently took my Omnath Glimpse of Tomorrow deck. Like, have you seen that awful like Glimpse of Tomorrow deck in modern?
Yes.
I've turned that into a commander deck.
Yeah, and I know that's part of the fun too. Just knowing that you can't have 4 of, and you're trying to make a format that has 4 of. It's another format. Exactly, it's fun. It really is. It's exciting.
And switching back and forth from that mindset and that play style, I'm not a very like. I do aggressive stuff sometimes, but you can ask these guys when it comes to playing. I'm like, man, I don't want to make this person feel bad. Like I'm more Canadian.
Zach's over there like, I have a board state, I won't attack you. I'm sitting there going, sucker.
It does go back to rule 0 though, right? Where you guys want to discuss everything before we start the game, power level and all that, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm more Canadian than Dan. Like, if I win, I'm always like, sorry guys, I didn't want to win that way.
Like I said, we've been playing with like a new group of players, and like they're all still innocent to the game. They're learning the fun combos and everything like that. So I was like, hey, like I'd like to show you guys like an interesting combo and stuff. I was like, who wants to get hit with it? And someone's like, not me and stuff. And they're like, yeah, like sure, like let's see what it is. And I was like, oh, cool. I'll play liquid metal coating. And they're like, what's that? He's in mono green. What's he gonna do with that little guy?
Yeah.
And then I splintered their mountains.
You brought it up a couple times. It's an interesting format because you can play with cards that you don't play with in other formats. Cards that need a home. And I look at Pioneer that way. I look at what's the other one? Pauper. I look at Pauper that way also. You're finding home for a card that needs a home.
The whole point I made this deck, like it's a for Elise deck. Whole point I made it is like I would just want to splinter people's lands. It's very funny.
You bring up a good point. We talked about that on my Neolord deck where I had Reality Acid. That's a huge popper deck, and I threw it in my commander deck because it blinks it. So it's just fun. And that goes back, like there's these, I feel like it's one of those things, like commander is the Wild West of Magic, right? You don't really know. Someone can like 4 people can sit down with the same commander and have completely different decks. That is that is a very real thing.
Yeah.
We did that though, Zach. We had it's on YouTube now, but we did 4-player mutate. Mm-hmm. And every deck was different, and even 2 commanders with I didn't even turn up with a mutate commander. I turned up with Chromat.
I think I saw that. I think I actually saw that one.
And
that was a lot of fun.
That was a really fun game, but every deck was different.
Yeah. I'm into stuff like that though. Yeah.
So like that goes back like to what I was getting at is we can all sit down with the same commander and have an idea of what that commander is going to do, but all 4 decks be completely different. So the threat assessment becomes then like, all right, this is a potential of things that can happen. Now, how do we deal with it? Just because you can threat assess and say, oh, Dan has 400 angels, that's a problem. I have no mass removal. How do we deal with this threat assessment now? And personally, how I deal with it, I'm the silver tongue. Like, whenever I play D&D, I am the character with the most charisma. I am your Locke. I am your Bard. We're rolling. I'm rolling with advantage when I'm persuading someone. So that's when it comes to these things where it's like either I have the answer in hand and I don't want to use it because I don't want to extend plays to help other people because I'm selfish sometimes, or if I just do not have it and I feel like Dan knows like that card does something in his deck. I know it does, and I know it's bad. How do I get the table to help me not die? And for me, it's like, guys, Dan is a problem. I can't deal with them. How can we deal with them? What can we do to make this not a thing?
Against me, it's pretty easy to threat assess because I just threaten everyone at the table for everything. I'm like, all right, you do that, I'm gonna kill you. And they're like, I'm playing a land, man. It's a force. I'm like, do it. I dare you. Yeah, like I threaten everyone in every one of the games. So I generally make myself like arch enemy in every game. So it's very, very fun to play that way. It's super fun going into metas who don't play against me because people just kind of leave me alone. And like Lotus said, like any game that I'm like left alone, it's just like suddenly just there's a point in the game where there's no coming back from. But like I said, I like to dirtle, so it just makes people mad because they know I can just keep like they know that I'm not gonna stop what I'm doing, but I won't kill anyone. I'm just like sitting there with like 800 tokens. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. What's up?
Yeah, you did that with your Fire Song and Sun speaker. You were on 5-digit life total.
Yeah, like I like to play just Magic like a Grand King. I just like to see how many tokens I can get, how much life I can get, what's my highest storm count. Like I like to set personal records. I'm shocked I don't have a blackboard at my house for it. Like
Benson's like that with most of his decks.
With
Anytime
rocks.
we play with rocks, with he has Tavesh and Rograk built.
yeah,
It's a mono black deck. He just has Rograk as his only red card because it's free to cast. He's literally had it where he's had a turn 2 Tavesh and he's had multiple times to steal our commanders, but literally all he tries to do is see how many cards he can draw a single turn.
yeah. Like I just like to play silly things. Like you were saying, if the deck I built does even a little bit of what I wanted to do, I view that as a win. Like I don't care who actually wins the game, who's left standing and stuff. If I do something that I like built because I think it's funny, like I didn't win the game that I splintered the deck, but I had fun. I had a great time stripping all of the mountains out of their out of their 2-color deck.
Yeah, that's the fun part about Magic, though, man. I mean,
I don't know if it's the
one
fun
chick, she
part.
came over. There's a lot of fun parts. But this one chick, she came over one time and she had a deck where it was all red and she did 6 damage to everybody, including herself. And that's how she won the game, by killing everybody, including herself. So I don't know. I guess you could say nobody won that game, but her deck was designed around nobody's going to win this game,
Like Group Slug.
I built I think it was the 4 or 5 color My Little Pony deck that it literally has the keyword that everyone wins the game if you get so much all the characters out. Yeah, I managed to get that off.
In our competitive meta, there's someone like in our in-store like ones, there's someone whose favorite like win con is just getting Divine Intervention out. And oh man, it just frustrates so many people because like just the game is a draw, no one wins, just makes everyone so mad. And it's his favorite. Like, his whole deck is built on getting that card, protecting, casting that card, and just making the game a draw. And in those like events, we play for like points and stuff. And if it's a draw, no one gets any points. So a lot of the time, like he'll just like drag the like top player down like 8 positions because of his Divine Intervention shenanigans. It's so funny.
Well, he's not keeping that a secret. He's actually letting everybody know before the game starts, right?
Nope.
So let's go back to Rule 0, right?
Oh, not in competitive. There is no Rule 0 in competitive. In competitive, you just try win.
Got it. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, there's I generally like I'd love to have like a giant Rule 0 conversation, but I don't like telling people like my win cons, and I don't like asking theirs. I like figuring it out and like seeing like I really like watching how people like Lotus, for example. Lotus is a judge. Lotus has a lot of game knowledge, right? So Lotus likes to get like these like complex, like I'm going to try and like hit this trigger into this like game knowledge, like win cons and stuff like that, right? I know that Zach like builds like a ton of like very clever, like I'm going to recur this to do this. And if this does that, then like Grevin's a 40-40. And I'm like, what happened? Like, why is this so big, right? So I like figuring out as people are playing, like I don't like spoilers of what's in your deck. I don't like anything other than like a what experience do you guys want to have here, generally speaking. And I just play whatever because I don't mind being on the lower end. I just don't want to like pub stomp the table. And I often have like so many tokens that I am pub stomping the table. So that's why I just dirtle so much and do stupid things, because it is funny to see me lose when I'm doing something like that. Like there's no doubt about it that when I have 500 angels and you Rakdos charm me, it's hilarious. Feels good. I've been Rakdos charmed so many times lately.
Yeah. It's a card you should all buy.
Yeah, I think the threat assessment does change though when you have like a mirror match, like when you got control versus control or something like that. That's what you were kind of alluding to earlier. When you got a different scenario outside of the normal. But when Dan talked a second ago, it kind of brought me up to another thing I want to bring up with threat assessment. You got a new person in the pod. They're not used to everybody knowing what everybody's play style is or what they're gonna try to attempt to do. That new person in your pod, he's sitting there going, oh, whoa, I got to step my game up. And, coming from their threat assessment, putting myself in their shoes, You know, like if I was to come into your play group right now, I don't know what to expect. You guys don't know what to expect from me, but you know what to expect from you guys, right? You guys know what each other are going to expect.
So
See, I agree with that, but I also see Dan knows that I love intricate triggers, weird interactions that only if you're invested in the rules really know what happens. However, I have a singleton collection and I only build 1 or 2 decks and then I take them apart, rebuild new decks with the same cards. So it looks like I have lots of decks, but I don't. I just have 1 or 2 that I switch around. But every 3 weeks, I'll come to the table with a brand new deck, a brand new deck, a brand new deck. These guys have no idea what's in it every week because I change the win cons, the style, the play style, how it wins. But the continuous thing is I love interaction, so you can't really threat assess a player and their play style. You still have to see what they're physically playing on the board.
Well, and I was going to say, no matter how much you play with me, you can't judge my meta style because I have like 357 decks right now put together. So it's not often I play them back to back. Yeah, like so.
You're just aggressive.
A lot of times people like play a commander that I have and then they never see that deck again. Like they never get to play against it again because I just have so many I cycle through. So I'm basically just a constant chaos player of like, what is he doing this time? Like what nonsense is going on? And the fun thing is because of like this group and everything, I take like a lot of build styles from Lotus and from Zach and stuff. Like Zach inspires me to build like a lot of like just silly things that I never would have thought of because of like his like theme building. I'm like, I love that. I'm going to build this. The same with like Lotus and like Chatterfang kind of stuff or Toski, right? Like it's fun to build just these nonsense play styles that I wouldn't play myself. And then no one's like, cause it's not my play style. No one has any expectation of like, oh, he's doing like a squirrel tribal. What is this?
So to what you were saying, whenever a new player joins our pods, typically I'm more than willing to fall on my own sword to try to protect that person because they are new, so they can get indoctrinated into like kind of what's going on. Like the only time I ever like, and that's kind of I think what's important too. If you bring someone new into your pod, is that by no means do I think you should like pull punches or like let them pity win because that's not fair. That's not fun for them. You know, like that takes away any kind of excitement or enjoy they might have in a false victory. But also like I'll be quick to tell someone, you know, if we're in the middle of a game, I have no problem being like, look, I have Negan out. I can win next turn if you don't remove Negan or my treasures, or, you know, like, hey, I'll just go ahead and tell you, you remove my graveyard, I'm gonna be real mad at you, but that's probably gonna be the smartest idea. Whenever someone's like playing a Bajuka Bog, like, oh, I don't know whose graveyard to hit, everyone just kind of
it's Zach. Like, it's always Zach.
Yeah,
and even I'm just like, yeah, it's me.
Just to be clear, I just brought that up on the table because I want to understand from all technical sides of views. I didn't do my homework before coming on today's show, but you know,
neither did we.
Right?
Didn't even know my name.
right. When it comes to threat assessment, I was just trying to, you know, make sure that I do understand that I know the angles of where I'm coming from, right? And that is one of the angles I'm coming from, is from a new player perspective. It's not that I'm a new player by any means.
But you're new to our group, right? Like how?
No, that's not what I was trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, when I make my content, I'm looking at it as there's a person out there, little Timmy, that just now getting into the game, and what can he learn from this episode? If I only talk about Rakdos and Simic, some things that he doesn't understand, then later on he's going to understand, but now he doesn't understand. I have to put myself in that person's shoes. And one subject when it comes to threat assessment is a new person coming into a group this group knows everybody and what's going on in their play style. But when a new person comes in, so like what you just brought to the table, Zach, was amazing too. You know, how you take care of the situation. You grab them underneath your wing, you know. I find that to be amazing. I'm just looking at threat assessment from different angles. So the normal threat assessment we covered first. And then you brought up another subject when it was like a control versus or this versus that. Or whenever, for your example, when you, Lotus, Dan, and somebody else all played the same Rakdos deck or whatever it was.
No, I wasn't in the mutate. I won't be a part of those shenanigans. The mutate is a garbage mechanic for garbage people. Quote it.
Well, you guys
quote it, Lotus. Quote it.
You guys all play the same commander, but a different deck, right? So what I'm saying is, when we're covering threat assessment from different angles, That's one angle I was trying to cover.
Another good thing that I like to do, like I do this a lot at when we were having GPs. I would go specifically to trade and play commander games with new people because that's something that I love. I love being able to just sit down and play a commander game with new people. So a way that I start threat assessing is we'll sit down, we'll have our rule 0. You know, that's always good to do, and I suggest everyone always do that. But I'll look at who everyone's playing. So like, as soon as we sit down, I see someone's playing like Lazov, someone's playing like Tulane, and then someone's playing like a Fraley's, right? Like, okay, let's think about this. This person's playing Lazov. Maybe that it's for me, I always think clones, but maybe that's not the case. Maybe they're just trying to do weird interactions in graveyard. Okay, so I know that's maybe a graveyard themed deck. This person's playing Tulane. I'm going to assume this is like a blink deck. So knowing, you don't necessarily have to know what the deck is, like they're 99, like we talked about earlier, but for threat assessment, just being able to sit down and kind of like, okay, if these are the commanders that are being played, obviously I would assume if you're playing commander, you have a general idea of like what the colors do together and like some cards that are kind of like more noticeable or more known in the group. So these are cards you should maybe think about and look at. Like, all right, if this Fraley's person sits down and they play doubling season, that should probably be dealt with very quickly. If Tulane sits down and he plays like a Panharmonicon or a like Conjurer's
Curio,
yeah, those should be dealt with. If Lazov entombs something, don't worry about don't counter entomb, exile whatever he entombs. So that's another way to try to threat assess as a new player. And if you don't have that much knowledge about the commanders, even think about the colors. What do the colors want to do?
Right.
Well, I would probably say if you're new to the game, ask to see the commander, read it, and in your head go, how would I build this deck? What would I do? Like, okay, Wolfgar of Icewind Dale, when your creature attacks, double its attack triggers. How would you build that? I'm going to attack everyone. Okay, it's an aggressive deck. I need stuff to deal with aggressive stuff.
Did they make an Icewind Dale card?
Yeah, Wolfgar.
Oh, Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. I have that deck, and it is dumb.
Super aggressive. Love it.
When did they make that card? When did they make that card?
In the D&D set.
Yeah, it's in the Draconic Rage Commander deck.
I was going to say it almost had to be the new D&D set.
Yep. Wolfgar's ability is whenever a creature you control attack, like if a creature attacking causes a trigger to go off, it goes off a second time.
Whoa.
And it has melee.
Yeah, so it by itself is already big, but like even in like a Najeela and stuff, your creatures, when you attack with a warrior, you get that many, you double your attack. It's a real strong
Just to
deck.
give you perspective, he is a 4/4 with melee, which will trigger twice. But if you have, for argument's sake, Ibex Pathway and swing the Ibex at someone and Wolfgar at someone else, melee will trigger, Ibex will trigger twice. You can do 59 damage with those two creatures alone.
Yep. You can really crush people. Yeah. If you are a bad person and have Ulamog in your deck, you can exile 40 cards. It's very fun. Very fun deck.
But Lotus brings up a good point. That's another thing that I was kind of alluding to with threat assessment. If you read the commander and you don't necessarily know what a general 99 would look like, thinking about how you would build it yourself is a good way to threat assess, right? Like, okay, if this person sets down this commander and then plays anything that gives it haste, it's going to automatically get to do what it wants to do. And there are some big dumb creatures in Magic that do scary things when they attack. Right.
Say, yeah.
So that's another way. But even if you can't go that far, if it's in colors you're not very familiar with, let's say you're not a Gruul player, right? But you know what green wants to do, and you know what red wants to do, and you have a good idea of what they want to do together.
Right.
All right. Like what they're going to ramp really hard. They're probably going to play big creatures that maybe have fire breathing, or so. How would you combat that? What would you be looking for that they could potentially play that would be a problem? Just stuff like that. That's a good way to threat assess as a new player in a new pod. I do that every time I would sit down at a GP, or if we would get in randoms, or even when we do the pre-con league stuff. I might not know the exact, because I didn't pick up this, commander deck. I might not know exactly what it is, and I don't look it up. But I can see what the commander is, I can read what the card does, and then start to formulate, okay, if I see something that does X, I should probably be aware, and if it starts to go out of hand, we should address it. So that might be another way for a new player to threat assess.
My favorite way to bring new players into like a pod when I don't know is I just play Kenrith group hug, and I just like to just show people like the highest acceleration their deck can get and go, and I just like to see like other people's decks go off. Like Kenrith is not really meant to win. It doesn't win many games, but like it's a fun deck, right? So I regardless of power level, I generally try like make it a better experience for people with it, and then I slowly show them what 800 tokens look like in different decks.
Player. I found out that you're a green player. That's what it sounds like to me. You're a green player.
Nope.
I'm a mono blue player. I like to keep all my I like to keep all my lands untapped. So threat assessing for me is a little bit differently than the other colors and stuff. But I guess when you asked me the question earlier, how do I threat assess? I thought it was just mainly while you're playing the game. But you know what? Preemptively, before you play the game, you should look at the commander and stuff, because that's what information you have in front of you. Also, the new companion thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you've got a companion, there's a restriction, so you already know what the restriction of their deck is. Like Lurus, everything must be 2 CMC.
Yeah. So almost in other games too, where, like poker, for example, or whatever, any information that you get is information. It can be used to your advantage. So I'm a kind of a player, again, we're all competitive and stuff. And I look at threat assessment, I guess, every angle that I can. I know what I'm playing with. What are the odds and statistics this is going to come up? Again, we're playing a singleton format. So you got to, you're doing a lot of guesswork here. So luck is involved. Unless you're tutoring, Well,
even with tutoring, sometimes there's just a bad pairing. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. Like if you're playing tokens,
I agree.
And Zach has like Pillow Fort and Lotus has just like a Grave Pact kind of deck. Like I'm going to lose my big creatures before I can, like Avenger of Zendikar making 0/1 plants isn't a big deal. It's his ability to put the tokens on, right? Like if I get a big Mycoloth out and then I'm playing a super heavy removal meta and I lose the Mycoloth, like there's just some games that your deck is just not meant to win. That's what I do like the most about Commander is there is no even in like the highest tiers of competitive, there's no one thing wins. There's things that are more consistent, but like I like the chaos of like, is this gonna work right now or no?
Yeah. The two things you just said right there, as an example, happened in one scenario 2 days ago. The guy he goes, you got that one deck? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I want to see that combo go off. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we sat down and played, and he was playing a control deck, and he wouldn't let my combo go off. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a bad matchup, but why did he want to see me pull off that combo? He didn't. He wanted to see if he can stop me the whole time. That's my thought process on it. But,
right.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Even the tier 1 decks, can be beat by a 25-cent card or even the cards nobody's ever heard of or whatever.
That's kind of what I try and show people. I love the jank, and you see these decks that are $1,500 that people are like, I can kill people on this. I'm like, cool, here's a 25 cents rare that you've never heard of.
You mean the decks I report every week on my podcast about?
Yeah.
It's like, here's conversion. All your plains are now mountains. Good luck.
Yeah.
I do want to cycle back to what Dan said about me playing a Pillow Fort deck and Lotus playing a Grave Pact deck. That would never happen.
I know, that's why I said it that way.
That would absolutely never happen. I would be playing the Grave Pact deck.
Zach's got a Feldegriff deck going for some reason. He was in a car crash on the way home.
I only went to one tournament for Commander, and I sat down, and I alluded to it earlier, but I didn't want to explain it to you guys, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and let you know that I did the assessment thing where I looked at the guy's commander, because the guy that won, I should have paid more attention to his commander, but I glanced over. It was a Planeswalker. It was real cheap to bring out. I know white was in the casting cost, but he killed all 4 of us in the pod, or all 3 of us that were in the pod, because there was 4 players. He was the victor. He killed us all turn 3 real quick, and maybe the other guys knew, maybe they didn't, but I didn't know that Planeswalker can do or was going to do that, and combo out with another card to make him win that quick, And what would you, now, since I've only been playing the format Commander for 2 years, what advice can you give to me for, threat assessment when it comes to not knowing the format completely yet,
I never assess on commanders because I build commanders like an idiot. So like looking at my Kenrith, I have like 5 Kenrith decks right now. You're never going to know what's going on in them unless you know my sleeve colors, and I don't change my sleeve colors ever. So like if you're ever seeing like my like neon green sleeves, like it means I'm trying to play Clash of Clans in the background and not paying attention to the game and skipping my turns. That's an annoying deck. But yeah, it's just I think in general, like in your Rule Zero conversation. Oh, there goes Zach with his power. I was going to say in general with your Rule Zero conversation, you're able to get a little bit of the information of like the speed of the game you're going to get. And I think that that's going to be like the best thing, because like you said, there's ways to break so many of the cards, right? Like seeing someone like break their commander and like do like a cool infinite blink or something. Like a lot of people do like an Aminatu, what's the white blink cat, Lotus? You know what I'm talking about?
Beladar Guardian.
Yeah, that and like Altar of the Brute, something like that. Like it's really fun to see like people like do the back and forth ways of breaking it. The problem with designing a set is that there's so many interactions and so many complex rules. Like the rule book is the size of my torso. Like there's so many rules in Magic, and the people designing them are not level 1 judges who are like not, you know, they're not judges who understand the complexity of the game and how things work. They're like, this is like a cool theme. So really, like the best way to do is just keep playing. Like you said, you saw that. Now you'll know that combo exists. Right. It's just in-game experience of like what can happen here, what can combo, right? Like what would you say for that, Lotus?
So there's no way to assess everything and prepare for everything in Commander, because it is tens of thousands of cards. And everyone brews the same commander, as you say, differently. The decks are completely different. Someone like me could pick a commander and build a 99 card deck that doesn't even need the commander, and it's completely off. I just chose it because I like the colors.
Yeah, I was gonna say a color pile.
Right.
Because there's no physical commander for the deck I want to build, so I'm basically playing Canlander. So what I would recommend is just go in, do the threat assessing you can with what knowledge you've got available. If you lose to a combo or you lose to a deck because you've not assessed correctly, or there's something new that you didn't expect, don't get angry and mad about it. Like, learn what the thing is that you lost to and learn how you can play against it, or, I don't know, enjoy it and put it in your decks, because losing isn't a bad thing.
Yeah. Learning from a loss is always good.
Yeah, I definitely learned from it. I'm not going to use it. It was white, not my color.
That's
white is powerful.
Yeah, when you said that you're a green player, no, I much prefer white. Like I would say white is the most common color across all my decks. Like I love white, especially like as a secondary color. I play a ton of like annoying Azorius stuff. Like I play a lot. I think I have 21 or something like mono white decks. Like I really, really like mono white.
So what are your thoughts on the new white style they're doing? What they're doing with white now,
where they're trying to I don't like that they're trying to fix the color. White needs a weakness. Like a lot of the time, it's not that white is weak. It's that what white is good at, people don't like to do in Commander. I have decks that are just meant to blow people's lands up. That's the whole point of it. Like, play against someone who's like just like running like just like a very annoying like Crucible of Worlds like in white while they Armageddon your stuff. Like people don't play the kind of like you've said many times, Commander's a social format and stuff, right? But play a white deck where you've got like just a bunch of like, you're going to have Smothering Tithes out and Armageddon the board. Sit there and start like Field of Ruining people's like basics that are color fixing for them. Just go ahead and strip mine someone's green land when they're playing 3-color decks. See how you feel about mono white then. It's white has the best answers for a lot of things. Like, yeah, like you can, blue has like a lot of counters getting things onto the board, but things that are on the board, like white gets rid of them permanently. And that's like the biggest problem in Magic. So many people, like Zach's gone right now because his power sucks and they had a big storm. But exiling Zach's creatures is a significantly worse problem for Zach than just destroying them or countering them. Like if you counterspell something of Zach's in 99% of his decks, it's just coming back to the field like the next turn. He's just going to reanimate it or animate dead it or whatever. But if you hit it, like Lotus said, with like a field, Swords to Plowshare kind of stuff, right? You've like wrecked. Yeah. But no, like a lot of white has a lot of really solid salt cards in it. Like I really like to bounce Solitude right now.
All right,
I have to agree. I have this strange vision in my head that players want white to be better and to be fixed. I have this vision that in a year, 2 years' time, players are going to be complaining that white's too powerful.
I agree with her. Yeah.
I play mono white angels. I exile the board. I destroy everything. You can kill my board and my angels, but I will revive every angel with the Emeria land, with the angel that brings more angels back.
Rhea.
Yeah, I can bring back my big, powerful angels continuously. I have counter spells in white. I have recursion. I have exile. I have removal, land destruction. You name it, it's in that one deck.
Unless someone's
it's underpowered.
Unless someone's been living under a rock, like Smothering Tides is like a format problem. Like it is a powerhouse card. And in any deck that can run it, a lot of people are basically of the train of thought right now that you should. Like, if it wasn't an expensive card, like if Smothering Ties was a $5 card, you would never find a copy for the rest of, like, time. Like, it's just such a good card, and they just keep giving white those cards. Like, I don't believe in, like, giving, like, white has those huge angel cards, right? I don't believe that, like, it should get the equivalent ramp of green or, like, hey, like, if everyone draws this, like, they are overpowering some of the colors to a point that I don't know they'll be able to walk it back.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to. So, you mentioned a lot about the way white used to be. And now they're just giving it the ability. Like, when I look at green nowadays, green can draw cards. It can bounce your creatures. Green can do a lot of things blue does, And now I look at white, and I'm like, wow, white's starting to cross that line also, And I really fear for the unbalancing. Every once in a while when they got something out of the color pie, that's fine. Right? Commander, I used to think Commander's the future, and now I think it's now. Commander's just now. Instead of just saying Commander's the future, we're living in it now. This is the future, Commander. And I'm glad to be a part of it, right? But I think we all three agree that they shouldn't change white.
My view, if you're going to, like, fix the ramp, like, you don't make, like, land tax effects on, like, Keeper of the Accord or stuff like that, like, where it triggers every turn, or you don't do a Smothering Tide. Like, if you think there's a problem, like, make white's version of a Findhorn. Make, like, a white cleric that taps for one. Like, give the other colors the pip creatures. Something like that to, like, help them get going and stuff. Like, the most basic of the green ramp. Don't make a white cultivate. Like, don't make, like, white explosive vegetation. Like, no, it's a problem. Like, white has a lot of very, very big cards. White also has all of, like, the auras and stuff like that. Like, there's a reason that those auras take a while to get out and stuff. Like, you don't want someone just, like, constantly, like, stacking, like, that's why, like, there's so many good decks. Like, Gallia right now is, or Galea, however you say the new commander's name, is one of the most popular on EDH Rec because it's got the control, it has the ramp to use it, and then it has just all the nonsense white auras and equipment. So, like, you have all of the ability to Stoneforge Mystic and get your stuff out. You have the ramp to support it. Like, white shouldn't have that built into just its own color pie.
Oblivion Stone and everything else, yeah. Vanishing Lights, yeah.
Man, I could talk about why I like mono white all day.
Well, I just part of the question, though. I mean, we're just talking about threat assessment, and it's really hard to do that with white. White being all over the board the way it is, especially when they're changing it now, too.
So there's an interesting story. When I joined into the 99 and went on your stream, I brought a mono white deck. Everyone threat assessed me as, oh, silly white deck, it won't ramp, it won't do anything. Brian is now terrified because I was countering spells, and
yeah, you love the off-color counters.
There's 5 counter spells in white, and I managed to draw 4 of them, and Brian will never look at my white decks ever again the same way.
Well, yeah, like it is just fun to... It's fun to see the different colors go off, but like I said, like they just don't... Like, there at no point should, like, green get, like, access to, like, faster, like, acceleration, followed by, like, 6/6 creatures that can just get out early. Like, Frost Titan in blue is already a good card. You don't want people ramping it out in mono blue and then, like, locking your lands down for the game. Like, Yeah, it's I don't know. I like I said, the color. It's what I like about Magic. The difference of like, hey, like this color is good at that. This color is good at that. Like it makes you kind of build that way. I think that back to like our topic of threat assessment here. I think that it is going to like throw the balance of the game off and how you do those threat assessments, right? Because you know in general, like if I'm playing in an Azorius deck, I might be annoying, but I'm significantly more annoying turn 6 onwards. Once I have the mana, like let's say I hit my first 6 land drops, once I've got 6 lands in Azorius, I've got enough to play most of my creature things and still keep up mana for counters. Then I'm annoying, right? You have different times. Like green is always going to be the fastest early game stuff, but you don't want the other colors to be that way. Like what are we going to do? Like just like give like mono red a bunch of ramp to keep it up, and then all of a sudden we're like playing like turn 3 Balefire dragons, like
going along with what you said. It's going to come to a point where the colors don't matter.
Yeah, everything is ramp the gathering.
Well, if you want to do 3 direct damage, you can just use that 1 green card, you know.
Yeah.
1 green, 3 damage. Scry 1.
I will water blast 1 blue to deal 3 damage to any target. You're like, what? What is this?
Yeah, I mean, I really feel for that too. There's a few things that can, you know, affect the health of the game in its entirety. But you know, when I asked you earlier what your thoughts of the way they're changing white is because, again, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I just think a lot of the white cards really have been, you know, overlooked and overpowered. And with them changing it, I really do feel that can hurt the health of the game, you know.
I have a very unpopular opinion about white, and I think that it's people don't know how to play white properly because they don't know, they don't use it to its strengths, they just see its weaknesses, and then they don't want to play the cards that's in white because they're too powerful.
Man, I love playing white decks. Like I just love gaining so much life. That's by the way, straight out my view on like playing white cards is why Infect should stay in Commander. Because yeah, like a lot of times I get so much life when I play games with white decks that there's no other way to kill me.
Are they thinking about abolishing Infect from Commander?
No, it's just a general complaint a lot of people have. They're like, Infect should function differently. Like, why do you have to? But there's not like a ton of support for it. But you need to be able to kill people who just can't, for other words, like die. Like short of like, if you're not playing a Voltron Commander, like you're not gonna kill someone with 10,000 life. So what's your other option?
Those people don't think Livewire Lash is not enough support for Infect?
Yeah, like. And I'm certain that they are going to bring back more Infect stuff when they eventually like get back to like they're leading up to a confrontation of like the new Gatewatch, like so to speak, of like Will and Rowan Kenrith, like Kea, that kind of. They have to deal with the Phyrexians, right? Like they can't just like the Elspeth's back. She's on like a wild crusade against them. The Phyrexian stuff's coming, and there's a lot of Infect stuff, like the Mirian Crusader style, like Phyrexian Crusader versus Mirian Crusader. Like there's a lot of those like corrupted ones, and that corruption hasn't stopped. Like it's not like time froze on new Phyrexia, so there's going to be more like nonsense Infect cards that are coming very soon.
But
I like the lore. I don't follow it much, but I like the lore.
But if you're wanting to not so much threat assess but deal with Infect, there's a great white card called Leeches that's 1 white, and you can remove all poison counters from any player.
Didn't know that. That's an interesting card.
So again, white has the benefit of sorting out Infect, and it's a 25p card.
No one knows what 25p means, though. It's the 25 potatoes over there.
Sorry, what is it, a quarter? 25 cents? I don't know, a bag of chips.
She's secretly trying to hint underneath the table. White's got an answer for every threat.
I like I said, like I do think that overall, I know we've kind of gone a little off topic, but like I don't think that they should change like the color balance as is. That's what I like so much about Commander, is that there's different things that accelerate like super well later on. You don't want Boros Angels to start coming out on like a turn 2. That's going to be a bad time for every single person. A turn 2 Gisela like of Gold Knight, it's a problem. It's a problem for everyone at the table. No one's having fun with that game. That's going to be rough.
I agree, man. Yeah, it goes back to rule 0, you know. I mean, unless you're playing competitive, like you said, I just learned that today.
Yeah,
the threat assessment. I'm not sure if we covered every angle Zach wanted us to cover, but I mean, yeah, it's going to be to each his own. You're going to learn from your mistakes. And
Zach's not here. Zach's not here, so I can finally say this. I tell Zach that all the time. Every time he's like, "Yeah, I'll do this," I'm like, "That was the wrong call, Zach." It makes him furious. He hates it. I love telling him it was the wrong call, but there really is no like right or wrong call. There's like, you only have the game information you have, and you can only make the decisions, right? Like you have to have that confidence to do it, like to not be deterred by it, and also realize that you can ask the table, right? You're playing with other people and stuff. If you have like a removal spell in hand, you don't want to hold your mana up, or like you said, you're waiting till the very last moment, like both of you like to play. Ask the table, is there something that's a problem?
There's certain interactions too that can happen. You know, the other day I was on my podcast talking about Exalted Deeds and that one Faceless Haven combo, and there's certain interactions that can happen that you've never seen before. And, you know, don't fret, but what I was alluding to earlier was, if there's one thing your listeners can take away from this is, you know, learning that there's more things about the game that you can learn you probably don't know right now. You know, this is the world's most complicated game. Shenanigans are going to happen, and there's thousands and thousands of games below my belt. I'm not going to say in the Commander format yet, but there's thousands and thousands of games under my belt to where you just know that every game is going to be different. Like a game of chess, there's always the same pieces, but no game is going to be the same.
And if someone, for example, does win and combos off, don't just say, fine, let's scoop it up. If you want to see it, ask them to play the combo.
I always make everyone play it out.
Yeah.
Well, not only that they might mess it up and lose, which does happen, but more that you can see the interaction and you can then go, oh, so this is what interacts with that. That's really good. And then you might think, oh, I want to build a deck that's similar to that and do stuff like this.
Love what she said, because if they're going to go ahead and swing like we want them to, right? If I'm going to die, man, just do it, you know? There's no need for me to scoop and upset you, right? Go ahead and swing out, and then they make a mistake and they don't win. It's a learning experience for them.
Brian specifically, out of everyone I've ever played with, Brian does not negotiate with terrorists. So like he'll be like, well, I'm gonna naturalize your Aetherflux reservoir, and I'm like, I'll kill you, Brian. And he's like, well, you're gonna have to do it if you do. So I was like, every time I do it, I'll Aetherflux reservoir your Llanowar. That's a warning, old man. I love when people just like don't negotiate with my like I'll kill you threats, because so many people are like, well, I guess I won't do it then. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Keep it that way.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Pack Crossing grips when you play against me.
It makes me want to play against you one day, man. That's funny.
Oh, you
funny.
Definitely should get some games in. It's I'm an interesting fella.
Something up afterwards.
Yeah, we'll set up a stream and stuff. I don't know if does Slothy or Peddler like play any online stuff?
Slothy does. So Peddler doesn't really play too much.
Yeah, he mostly trades, right?
He plays on Arena, right? Yeah.
He collects lands.
Yeah,
he collects lands. He sells everything else, but he'll play Arena because he's not paying for that stuff.
That's fair.
Quote, unquote.
We should do
unquote.
We should do a stream one of the days. Especially with Jason. Jason's a fun guy to play with too.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm always down for some Magic games. Absolutely.
Do you have like a webcam setup for playing?
I just bought a brand new HD camera, DSLR. Yeah, I got it.
Oh, like you got a DSLR setup. Nice. Yeah, so everyone listening, you will eventually see us play a game, and you'll see the nonsense shenanigans that is my brain.
There you go, man.
Lotus,
wild ride.
Yeah, we've definitely gone off topic. Like I said, Threat Assess is like before editing down, pretty long one. Lotus, you can let everyone know where they can find our stuff, and Zach, good luck with your power, man. Like,
yeah.
Wrong button again.
So, God damn, when are we going to get your replacement? So you can find everything of Into the 99, into99.com, your one-stop shop for everything Commander. On there you can find links to our Instagram, our Discord, YouTube, Patreon, and merch store.
Make sure you guys check out the Cryptic Commander podcast. They're a great group of guys. There's going to be a link to their show. I'll probably put the Spotify link up, but do you guys have a website at all, John?
Website? We are working on that right now. I have one up. It's been up for 2 years, but we're working on it right now to have it link everything, together, because of YouTube and then Twitch and stuff.
If they want to interact with you and not just hear you, where's the best place for everyone to find you?
Facebook. Let me pull that up real quick so I can give them the right verbiage. It goes by the Cryptic Commander Podcast, /MTGCCA finalist, !
That's a real mouthful.
Yeah. Well, it used to be the Cryptic Commander podcast, but then when I became in the finalist for the awards, I was just like, okay, because somebody else did it. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it too.
There you go. Well, yeah, check them out at that like 400 word long Facebook post. Like I said, I'll have a note in the show notes of where you can find their show. Great group of guys to interact with. And yeah, very, very fun. And if you ever want to talk about trading, they're the guys. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. I want to know how you threat assess. Am I wrong? And am I bad to bully people for playing Cyclonic Rift? Should I just get over it? I won't read those comments. Thanks so much, guys.
Take care. Why do I wave?
You're so used to doing the video.